You are wearing clothes right now. You put them on this morning without a single thought. You did not marvel at them. You did not consider what they are, or where they came from, or what they made possible. And here is the strange thing. Of all the clothing our ancestors ever made across hundreds of thousands of years, in every corner of the world, we have almost nothing. Not a scrap, not a thread, nothing. Because clothing is made of hide and fur and sinew and plant fiber, and every single one of those things rots. They decay and crumble and vanish completely, leaving no trace at all, which means that one of the most important inventions in the entire history of our species is, archaeologically speaking, invisible. So how on earth do you date something that leaves nothing behind? And the answer that scientists came up with is, I think, one of the most brilliant and delightfully disgusting pieces of lateral thinking in the history of science. Because they said, fine, we cannot find the clothes, so let's find something that lived in them. Let's talk about lice. Now, human beings have a distinction that nobody boasts about. We are host to 3 different kinds of louse, and one of them is unique to us in a very specific way. There is the head louse, and the head louse lives on your scalp and feeds there, and its claws are shaped to grip a human hair. That is its entire world. And then there is the body louse, sometimes called the clothing louse, and the clothing louse does something different. It feeds on your skin, yes, but it does not live on your skin. It lives in your clothes. It spends its life in the fabric. It hides in the seams. It lays its eggs in the stitching. Its claws are adapted not for gripping hair, but for gripping cloth fibers. And it only crawls out onto your body to feed before retreating back into the garment. And now, follow the logic, because it is beautiful. The clothing louse cannot exist without clothing. It has no other habitat. It is not a creature that happens to like clothes. It is a creature that is built for clothes and requires them and has nowhere else to go. Take away the clothing and the animal has no home and no future, which means the clothing louse could not possibly have evolved before clothing existed. It is a parasite whose entire existence is proof of a human invention. So the scientists said, we cannot date the coat, but we can date the louse, because we can take modern head lice and modern body lice and sequence their DNA, and by comparing the genetic differences between the two and using what is called a molecular clock, we can estimate when they split apart from a common ancestor. And that moment, the moment when one population of lice abandoned the scalp and moved into a strange new world made of animal skin, is the moment when human beings started wearing clothes. We cannot find the clothes, but we can find the fingerprints of the animal that moved into them. So what did they find? The results suggest that clothing lice diverged from head lice at least around 83,000 years ago. And the analysis pushes the most likely estimate considerably further back to something in the region of 170,000 years ago. Now, I want to be immediately, scrupulously honest with you here, because this is exactly the kind of number that gets reported far too confidently. The confidence range on that estimate is enormous, genuinely enormous. Depending on the assumptions, it can stretch from a few tens of thousands of years to several 100,000. And different research groups, using different methods, have produced meaningfully different answers. Molecular clocks are powerful, but they are blunt instruments. They give you a region of time, not a date. So the honest statement is this. Human beings have been regularly wearing clothes for at least 80-odd thousand years, probably a good deal longer, and possibly very much longer indeed. But even that fuzzy answer produces a fact that stopped me in my tracks. Because remember when we lost our fur? Our ancestors became effectively hairless something like 1,000,000 years ago. Possibly more. We shed our coats for reasons tangled up with sweating and running and the African sun. And we invented clothing perhaps 170,000 years ago, which means that our ancestors spent something in the region of 800,000 years, naked. Not naked in a furry sort of way. Not naked like a chimpanzee, which is covered in hair and is therefore, in every meaningful sense, dressed. Genuinely naked, bare, hairless skin, exposed to the wind and the rain and the cold nights and the sun for the better part of 1,000,000 years. We took off our coat, and then we stood around, bare, for an unimaginable span of time before it occurred to anybody to make a new one. Now, there is a complication here, and I want to give it to you straight, because it matters. Because the archaeological evidence for hide scrapers, stone tools apparently used for cleaning and processing animal skins, goes back a very long way, possibly 700,000 years or more. So people were working hides long, long before the lice say they were wearing clothes. Is that a contradiction? I do not think so. And the resolution is rather elegant. Because there is an enormous difference between throwing a hide over your shoulders on a cold night and wearing clothes. A draped skin is occasional. You use it when it is freezing, and you put it down when it is not. It is a blanket that you sometimes carry, and a louse cannot build a life in a blanket that is used twice a week and left in a heap. For a clothing louse to evolve, it needs something very specific. It needs a garment that is worn constantly, regularly, day after day, night after night, season after season, a permanent, stable, reliable home in contact with human skin that does not go away, which means the lice are not dating the invention of the garment. They are dating the invention of the habit. They tell us when clothing stopped being an occasional blanket and became the thing we simply wear, when getting dressed became what human beings do. And after that, one more revolution was still to come, because tailored clothing, properly fitted, sewn, closed garments, comes later still. That requires the eye of a needle, and it appears in the record around 40,000 years ago. So we have 3 stages, spread across an enormous stretch of time. First, the draped hide, ancient and occasional. Then, regular clothing, the habit of being dressed somewhere in the region of 100,000 years ago or more, which is when the lice moved in. And finally, tailored clothing, sewn to fit, which is what actually allows a naked ape to walk into the teeth of an ice age and survive. And now I want you to appreciate what clothing really is, because I do not think we give it nearly enough credit. Consider any other animal that wants to live somewhere cold: a wolf, a bear, a musk ox. To survive in the Arctic, that animal must grow a coat, and to grow a coat, it must evolve one, which takes tens of thousands of years and countless generations and an enormous number of deaths, as the ones with slightly thinner fur freeze and the ones with slightly thicker fur survive, over and over and over again. Evolution is the only way in, and the price of admission is measured in bodies. And then there is us. We wanted to live somewhere cold, so we put on a coat. That afternoon, we did not wait for evolution. We did not need 100,000 years and a mountain of frozen corpses. We took the coat off a different animal, one that had already done all the evolving for us, and we wrapped ourselves in it, and we walked north. Clothing is a portable microclimate. It is your own personal weather that you carry with you everywhere you go. You can put it on for the mountain and take it off in the valley. You can add a layer for the winter and shed it in the spring. You can change it for the desert and change it again for the sea. No other animal on Earth can do this. It is a prosthetic fur, and it can be redesigned in an afternoon, and that is the entire story of our species, compressed into a single object. Culture outruns biology, every time. That is our whole trick. Other animals have to change their bodies, and it takes an age, and it costs them everything. We change our behavior and our tools, and we do it in a generation, and then we walk straight into a world that should have killed us. And the timing fits beautifully, because clothing appears in the record well before our species made its great push out of Africa and into the cold, high latitudes of the north. We did not evolve for the Ice Age, we got dressed for it. But, as always, there was an invoice, because in inventing clothing, we also invented something else. We created, out of nothing, a brand new ecological niche, a warm, dark, humid, food-rich world pressed permanently against a mammal's skin. And something moved in, and the body louse is not simply an itch. Body lice are disease vectors. They carry typhus and trench fever and relapsing fever. And through history, in wars and in prisons and in famines and in refugee camps, wherever people have been crowded together, unable to wash, unable to change their clothes, those lice have killed human beings in truly enormous numbers. We made clothing, and clothing made a monster, and that monster has been killing us in the seams of our own garments ever since. That is the deal. It has always been the deal. Fire cooked our food and shrank our jaws. Farming fed the multitudes and broke the bodies of the farmers. Shoes protected our feet and weakened them. Every gift comes with a bill attached. And we take the deal every single time. And on balance, we are right to. So think about that tonight when you take your clothes off. Because every single garment your ancestors ever made is gone. Every hide, every fur, every wrap and cloak and boot and hood, every stitch sewn by firelight through the eye of a bone needle. All of it has rotted and crumbled and returned to the earth and left absolutely nothing behind. We will never find the first coat. We will never know who made it, or what animal it came from, or who wore it, or whether it kept them alive through a winter that would otherwise have taken them. But we know it existed. We know because of something that was living in it, something small and unwelcome and entirely dependent on us that crawled into a seam 100,000 years ago and never left. The clothes rotted away completely, but the witness is still here, still in the seams, still telling us if we care to listen, exactly when we finally decided to cover ourselves up. This is the raw horizon. If you love the discoveries where science finds a way to see the invisible, hit that subscribe button because our ancestors left evidence in places nobody ever thought to look. And tell me in the comments, does it delight you, as it delights me, that we dated the invention of clothing using head lice? And can you get your head around the idea that our ancestors were naked and hairless for the better part of 1,000,000 years? See you in the next episode.